Hello, my name is Guido Vitone. I'm an Argentinian mountain guide, explorer, and consultant. I like to research little known aspects of Patagonian geography and history. And I'm going to share screen so I can tell you about my presentation about John Bell's Hatcher explorations in Patagonia in 1898. And this was done without any help from artificial intelligence, or it's basically unrehearsed and with very little editing, so bear with me. Hatcher traveled extensively in Patagonia, but I'm going to make focus on his exploration of the Pinturas river canyons in an area sometimes described as central Patagonia. It's basically latitude 47 degrees south in the area of the well-known UNESCO World Heritage archaeological site, Cueva de las Manos, on Rio Pinturas. So basically, on this presentation, I want to walk you along or guide you along the canyons of the Rio Pinturas in the footsteps of Hatcher 125 years before today. There we go. So this is a typical view of the canyons. Like I said, no artificial intelligence. Basically, what I did is read in depth his reports, published as reports of the Princeton University expeditions to Patagonia. And of course, I did a lot of hiking in order to make sure that I could understand his descriptions and be able to convey an idea of what the place was like at his time and what it's like to be there now. There's also more recent editions of his of the Princeton reports. There's a book in English called Bone Hunters in Patagonia, which I was able to acquire. All publications have very interesting black and white photographs, which are the first ones ever taken in the area. The book has been translated into Spanish. There is also a very interesting paper from 2016 by Argentinian biologists. This paper has the title in English, Type Localities of Small Mammals in Patagonia, Hatcher's Expedition to the Meseta Lago Buenos Aires. It can be downloaded from the website of the National Scientific and Technical Research Council of Argentina. You have the website address there. And their focus of this paper was more with determining the location where samples of small mammals were taken in the area. So their focus is different from mine, but I found some common ground. And interestingly enough, I discovered this paper after I had done some of my explorations. And it was interesting to confirm that we agree on the itinerary of Hatcher. So now we're going to start reading Hatcher's book. That he says he entered this area by descending into one of the shallower canyons that he found, which we assume, we agree actually, with little doubt that it was that one there shown with an arrow. That is, that he entered this area from the southwest. And a short distance after entering this side canyon, he made a permanent base camp for the next several weeks, or up to a month and a half. So following Hatcher's steps, we set out in March this year with Kenneth Storm, who's been studying Hatcher in depth. So it was very interesting to run into him. Actually, we met thanks to our common friend Pablo Barbosa, who organized the logistics of this expedition. So we set out, the three of us, Kenneth, Pablo, and myself, a few weeks ago, down this side canyon, and we found the place where Hatcher camped, because he found a small spring of excellent water and plentiful supply of grass. Unfortunately, we found only a few muddy pits. The area may have changed due to drought or drier conditions, and especially overgrazing. We had high expectations of finding Hatcher's photos number 9 and 10, because he appeared to give a good degree of detail of the location of these photographs. However, we were surprised and a little Sorry, we were a little disappointed not to find the photographs where we thought they would be. We found a very interesting area. We scanned in detail. We looked, upstream and downstream in order to find locations. We found several, of course, very similar places, but no exact matches for his photographs. We just kept descending down the side canyon, and eventually we reached Cañadón Caracoles, which is the main canyon coming from the southwest, which you can see here through this gap in the rocks. The canyon is very wide, completely dry, like Hatcher described it. And we kept going for a distance, and then we saw a side canyon which looked familiar, and to our surprise, we had a perfect match with Hatcher's photograph of 125 years before us. It was very exciting. We were so excited about this. Small thing, but if you have this kind of interest, and it's fascinating to be able to explore an area and locate a photograph that nobody seems to have been able to replicate before we did. Anyway, so again, when this paragraph he describes two canyons, the dry canyon, which he called Guillo, but is now known as Cañadón Caracoles, and he got to a place where the Caracoles Canyon merges into the Pinturas River valley or canyon. But it's been a little difficult to locate his photographs. Actually, we were only able to locate two of all his photographs. And this is maybe one of the easiest places to identify, because it's actually the junction of these two canyons. So again, this is the second photograph we were able to replicate. Hatcher says that the place where these two canyons meet had been an Indian campground, and this was made evident by the presence of fragments of broken pottery, arrowheads, etc., which we also found in the photograph here on the right. You will see two other people there standing actually on the area where a lot of stone tool fragments and shards of obsidian are found. Now, the big enigma of Hatcher is how he could have missed Cueva de las Manos, which is downriver from the junction of the canyons, a short distance. And it's very clear that Hatcher explored the country in detail, but he somehow managed to miss Cueva de las Manos, which is really very difficult to understand. Another option is that he did see it and decided not to mention it, not to describe it. But again, that's also very puzzling. If he kept walking down the canyon, he would have reached this place that he followed. You can see an overhangs where the very well-known rock art is found. But he somehow, like I said, managed to miss it completely. What we did miss were any of his other photographs. We looked very hard. We followed the river, upriver a little, because I have a sense that even though Hatcher doesn't mention going upriver from the junction of the canyons, the photographs do look a lot like some place of upriver from the junction that I have visited. So I need to go back there again, because the aspect of the river indicates that the area corresponds with the upper Rio Pinturas and not the lower Rio Pinturas that Hatcher described, but of which there are no photographs, apparently. This is some of the areas we visited. Anyway, the area is fantastic. This video is actually also, this presentation is an invitation for you to visit the area. And if you're interested in Hatcher's story and all the things I am telling you about, please don't hesitate to contact me. I live not far from the area. I often guide there. And in this paragraph, he makes a very interesting observation on the nature, on, let's say, the hydrological nature of the canyon. He says that Rio Pinturas is rapidly silting up its own valley, which is a very precise description that Hatcher makes, like most of the things he remarks on. However, there are a few instances that we could say that he made some mistakes, because here he uses freely the word basalt to describe the area, but in the book he says, for example, here he says the walls of these canyons consist of a rather complicated series of igneous and crystalline rocks, while basalt doesn't really correspond with that. It's an extrusive volcanic rock. Today we know that most of the rock of the canyon faces is called ignimbrite, and it is a Jurassic volcanic rock. Anyway, it's a matter of names, but what's surprising to me is that Hatcher completely missed a few places where there is actually basalt, true basalt, in the sense that it's a lot completely different from the Jurassic rocks in aspect and in color. Also, its position indicates that it's a lot younger, while the Jurassic ignimbrites date back from 100 million years. The basalt is less than 1 million years old, and it flowed from the west into a pre-existing Pinturas Valley, so it's a lot younger. And I don't know how he could have missed this place, which anybody with an eye on geology and rock strata would clearly be able to pinpoint, like I'm showing in this photograph, the contact between the Jurassic rock and the basalt. So again, a little something that Hatcher overlooked. Also very interesting from the natural or the fauna or the wildlife side of his expedition is his encounter with deer, which are in fact the huemul species. He found them in the canyon. And there's been a big debate whether the huemul deer, which is now only seen in the forest, at some time in the past inhabited plains or the steppe of Patagonia and the Pinturas Canyon. Hatcher obviously spotted them there, but that doesn't mean that they live there permanently. Actually, this is the only place in the steppe that Hatcher encountered huemul. He describes, again, this is like a historical point of interest, because he intended to do some work looking for fossils in the area of Lago Buenos Aires, but he couldn't do it because he was interfered by the amount of smoke that came from the forest fires that he later learned were started by members of the Argentinian and Chilean boundary commissions, which were working in that area. Well, towards the end of his stay, Hatcher mentions that he had failed in his main purpose, which was to find a specific type of strata and fossils. He said that a lot had been accomplished. His friend, his only companion in that expedition, Mr. Coleman, had secured an excellent series of skins and skeletons of recent bird and mammals. At the end of April, they were starting to get ready to go back to the coast. And now I'm going to make some comments on Hatcher's legacy. Ironically, Hatcher's work was interfered by the fires of the Boundary Commission, but at the same time, Hatcher's description of Patagonia, his publication, was very important for the arguments Argentina used against Chile in its border dispute, which finally settled in 1902. So this publication from the Argentine government, in a way, uses Hatcher's work as support because his opinions coincided with those of the Argentine expert. And the second sentence underlined there, he said that Hatcher is entirely opposed to the views of the Chilean expert. In a way, we could say that Hatcher's geographical expertise was hijacked in this mostly political battle between the two countries to force their understanding of Patagonian geography to reach the most favorable situation for where the border should be. This both Argentina and Chile did this. This paragraph I showed you was taken from this report. aimed at justifying the Argentine claims of the border running along the main summits and not along the watershed, which was the position that Chile favored. We also find Hatcher's name in some glaciological work because Hatcher described in detail the extent of the moraines that he found on his explorations. And one of these groups of moraines is now known as the Hatcher ice limit. This is a very interesting map. I don't know if you can understand the successive glaciations that affected the area of the Caracoles Canyon, which in this thesis by Andrew Hine are grouped as a series of moraines in the Lago Porredón Valley in Argentina. Hatcher produced 12 publications, so his legacy is very important, very significant. He died young, unfortunately. He was, I think, under 50. And Hatcher's name is commemorated in the scientific name of a lizard found in Patagonia, Eolamelus hatcheri, and an extinct Noto ungulate known as John Bell hatchery. And this is basically the end of the presentation. There's a very interesting biography of Hatcher with the title King of the Dinosaur Hunters by Lowell Dingus. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Please like, subscribe, comment, follow me, check my websites, and specifically, don't hesitate to contact me if you are going to visit the area. Thank you very much. I look forward to your comments.